So Starmer and Macron have provisionally agreed a one in, one out migrant swap policy. Or should we call it a 17 in, one out migrant swap policy, given the limited scope of what has provisionally been agreed? What is this new deal? Has Starmer negotiated a meaningful deterrent to stop the boats, or is he just allowing the French to take us for mugs once again? Let's take a look at what is going on. So, as you guys will be aware, Macron is visiting us in the UK. He's had a fancy state banquet with the king. Gosh, that looks glorious, doesn't it? They've got very fancy outfits on, lots of gold decor and beautiful flowers. And he spoke to Parliament. Oh, meanwhile, this is what is going on the beaches in northern France. Policemen being handed our money. They've had 771 million quid of your taxpayer cash, and the policemen stand there on the beaches and just watch the migrant boats go. We've given them money that's been spent on like fun buggies to drive around on the beaches, but it seems like they just have fun with their mates in those rather than actually stop the boats. And the evidence of that is very much in the numbers, because surprise, surprise, despite us giving them money to stop the boats, the percentage of boat crossings that they have managed to successfully stopped each year has actually gone down. So it does beg the question, why don't we ask for our money back? But that is not what Keir Starmer did. He decided he didn't want to make enemies, but he wanted to make friends with Mr. Macron, so he didn't ask for our money back. And let's be honest, Keir Starmer doesn't really care about your taxpayer cash going down the drain, does he? So what has been proposed? Now, I will caveat this before we get into this with that they say the talks are still ongoing. We are expecting on Thursday, I'm filming this on Wednesday, for there to be some kind of joint press conference, maybe with Starmer and Macron, maybe giving us an official signed deal. So it all could still fall apart. We've got some details here of what has provisionally been agreed, but bear in mind the details we have don't seem to say anything about how much this is going to cost us. Is this going to cost us nothing? And we agree, you're getting one migrant, one's going one way, one's going the other, we're equal, happy days. Or are the French going to ask us for another big wad of cash for it? I reckon probably the latter. They know Starmer's a weak negotiator. They know they can squeeze whatever the hell they want out of him. So let's have a look at the details we have so far. So, 1 in 17 migrants that we receive from France, that's going on the current figures. So it's up to 50 a week, or 50 a week to start off with, which works out 1 in 17 of the number of migrants that come across the channel. We will send them back, and we will take back a similar number from the French. Okay, you'd think it would be for every one we send one way, we get one back, but we're currently hearing similar number. That's where I'm already starting to raise my eyebrows, because I'm thinking, are they potentially going to send, are we potentially going to get more migrants sent our way than we are sending back to France? Are we going to end up with more people in this country? And who exactly are the French going to be sending our way? Are we going to get all of the bad ones? Are we going to get all the criminals? Are we going to get all the dodgy ones? Let's have a look at what we know so far. So Britain will send back 50 migrants per week under a trial of the scheme, the equivalent of 2,600 a year, which is pretty small compared to the 44,000 that have arrived since Labour won the general election. That's a pretty embarrassing figure, by the way, that we've had 44,000, because bear in mind, they have reversed the work that Rishi Sunak did. Rishi Sunak, he wasn't perfect, but he did get the numbers down from 45,000 to 30,000 by doing a deal with the Albanians. We are now back to where we started, pretty much. We're at 44,000. So 2,600 a year being sent back, will that be a meaningful deterrent? A lot of people say, well, that's just a tiny percentage of the number of migrants coming across. That won't deter them. However, I think it's possibly worth trying this, so long as the French aren't asking for a boatload of money for it, because the Rwanda deterrent, to my surprise, actually was beginning to work. The Rwanda deterrent, everyone expected okay, Rwanda is a waste of money because it's only going to send back a tiny number of people. It won't be a meaningful deterrent. But I spoke to people in Calais before the general election last year, and they said they were waiting for Keir Starmer to get into power because he knew Starmer would scrap Rwanda, and they were genuinely worried about Rwanda. These migrants, they don't have all the details. They don't know the numbers on exactly how many people. These people have limited information. They don't do their research completely. They heard that there was this, chance they might be sent back to Rwanda, and that was enough to scare them. So maybe this could work. And also, the numbers do show that. The numbers show that there was, a surprisingly very low number of crossings in the couple of months before the general election last year, because migrants were waiting to see if Labour would get into power and scrap the Rwanda deterrent before they decided to make that crossing. So, potentially, this could do something, but I hold my breath until I see it. It says here, however, it's understood the government hopes that there will be a significant increase in the numbers sent back after the short initial pilot. Okay, so there's going to be a pilot period. If it is the case that after that pilot period, the numbers start increasing significantly, maybe we've got a good deal. But we're dealing with the French. I don't think Keir Starmer quite realises who he is dealing with. And also, let's not forget, we've not just got the French to contend with, we've got all the lefty human rights lawyers, who I'm sure will come up with every single ECHR rule in the book that they can find and try to use it. Let's not forget, guys, how difficult it was for the Tories to try and put a few migrants on the Bibi Stockholm boat. You remember that barge? Do you remember the lefty lawyers all representing these migrants, saying they can't go on the Bibi Stockholm barge? It would be a breach of their human rights because they have a fear of water. People who came here on a boat, they weren't scared enough of water to come across the channel on a rubber dinghy, but apparently they're too scared of water to stay on a floating hotel. Okay, that's who we're dealing with. So don't expect this to be a walk in the park, ladies and gentlemen, and expect there to be plenty of arguments with the French. If this pilot scheme is A, successful, and B, they are able to massively increase the numbers being swapped, I'll be surprised. Let's not forget, we don't just have the French to contend with and the lefty lawyers to contend with. We also have the other EU countries who are absolutely kicking off about the prospect of a migrant swap deal with the UK. Because if we send a migrant back to France, once they're back in France, they could, under EU rules, be sent back to the first safe EU country that they landed in. So these other countries are worried that if we don't have a bunch of migrants leaving the EU and landing on British soil, that's more migrants that they're going to have to distribute between themselves in the EU. So they are not too happy about this. So let's see what happens. Let's also look at what French officials have said, because this is slightly concerning. French officials described the scheme as symbolic, but also said it would set a significant precedent, as it would be the first time that the country would take back illegal channel migrants from the UK. We would experiment with returning to France a person who arrived by small boat and had their asylum application in England rejected, and in return, a person with family ties in England would be admitted. Okay. So, it's not the case that if you come across to Britain on a rubber dinghy, that the next day you could be shipped off back to France. No. You will be in England for at least like a year, right? In your hotel, right? Because you have to wait until your asylum application is processed, we know how long that takes, and rejected before you qualify to be one of the migrants that might be sent back to France. Okay, so this isn't as great as we initially thought. So I'm not sure how much of a deterrent it is, right? If we are told, okay, if migrants are told in Calais and Dunkirk and places like this, you can get on a boat and you will definitely have a hotel and be fed and taken care of, get to go to the trampoline park, have DJ lessons, driving lessons, have a PlayStation, you name it. You will definitely 100% have that. But there is a small chance that after a year or two, when your asylum application is rejected, that you might get sent back to France and you might have to start again. But to be honest, in all the time you spent working for Deliveroo whilst you're in the UK for a year or two waiting for your application to be processed, you'll have made more than enough money to pay a smuggler again to try and get into the UK again. So, you know, is this really going to be a good deterrent? If it were the case that once you land in Britain, there is a chance that straight away, the following day or within a week, or however, very short period of time, you are sent straight back, yes, it could work. But I'm highly skeptical if it is the case that people will still be able to be here for a year or two waiting for their claim to be assessed. If they're able to do that before potentially being kicked out back to France, not to some scary country, not back to where they came from, but just to France, I don't know. And they say, because I did ask the question earlier, who are we going to get in return? The French say a person with family ties in England would be admitted. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't realise is that there are a significant number of migrants that come to the UK from France because, not because they hate France, and not necessarily because of the plushy hotel, but specifically because they have friends and family in the UK who have already crossed. Or maybe some of them have come legally, but most of the time they have family and friends that have already crossed legally, are already settled, living and working in the UK, and they could go and stay with their friends and family and not cost the taxpayer all that money to stay in the hotel. But the Home Office requires one-size-fits-all approach. You have to stay at the migrant hotel, all paid for by the taxpayer. We could save money if the Home Office, if someone rocks up on a boat and says, you know what, I want to stay with my friend because, I've come specifically to England to be, so that I can rejoin with my friend. Can I go stay at their house? And the Home Office would say, no, sorry, no chance. If we allowed them to go and stay with that friend, that would be great. So if it is the case that the French are going to send us people with family ties in England, and the Home Office actually allows them to stay with those friends and family rather than putting them up in the hotel, we might save a little bit of dosh. There's a chance of that. I highly doubt it, but there is a chance of that. But my worry is the French may say this, but I don't trust them. I worry that the French will maybe go to these camps in Dunkirk and Calais, which are full of gang warfare. They'll take the terrifying gang leaders who go around shooting people and beating up people and say, you know what, this one's a bad egg. Why don't we just send them to Britain? We'll say that they've got family ties in the UK, but they don't actually. We just don't want them here. That is my concern. We have to keep a beady eye on the French. And I think that, on this question of has Keir Starmer negotiated well with the French, I think it's good that he's got something across the line. Not 100% agreed yet, but if it's the case that this costs a load of money, he will be a poor negotiator. And I think Keir Starmer, regardless of whether he's trying to make friends with the French or not, he needs to be holding them to account for doing nothing with the 771 million quid that we have sent them. It is a disgrace, and we need to make clear to the French now, not later down the line, because we don't want to upset them. We need to make clear to the French now, you will not get a penny from us if it is not creating positive results. We've got no positive results to show for the money that we've sent them so far. So why are we not getting that money back or pausing it? I don't know what is going on. But Keir Starmer's a weak leader. He's a weak leader. He can't negotiate. But let's see what happens with this migrant deal, and we'll wait for that press conference on Thursday. Anyway, that's the latest. I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any more. See you next time.